Meeting for August 21st. Let's see. The Recreation Committee meeting for August 21st, 2023. Thank you all for joining. We very much appreciate your time and being here. Again, I apologize that I jumped on a minute late, but ready to go now. So if we would, let's just start off with a moment of silence, if you would, please. Amen. Thank you. And next on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 14th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion, deletions, additions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes have been approved. So next on the agenda, we have old business. Is there any old business that needs to be discussed before we move forward? All right, seeing that we have none of that, I do want to introduce you to Craig Hamer. Did I say that? I'm sorry, Steve Hamer. All right, I'm sorry. I want to introduce you and tell you thank you so much for joining. Charleston County Schools works so well with the city. Obviously, we share 75 Calhoun, but they do so many things with their facilities, and we work together so well when it comes to facilities and different things in the community, especially when it comes to recreation. We appreciate the cooperation that they give us, but Mr. Hammer is going to give us a update on the Johns Island Park field. So if you would, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Hamer. My title is the Associate for Facilities Management for the Charleston County School District. I work for Mr. Jeff Baroy, who's the Chief Operating Officer, who I'm sure has briefed this group, or you all have been introduced to him before. And Mr. Shealy asked me to take just a couple of minutes to talk to you a little bit about the project that we've actually been developing for quite a while here, at least several months, with the upgrades to the ball fields at Johns Island Park. As you know, Johns Island Park is one of your city-owned fields that our local high school there, St. John's High School, plays their home baseball and softball teams there. And so it's a beautiful facility, a beautiful park. Really looking forward to moving forward with this project. I'm a Johns Island resident, and I don't use the park very often, but I do enjoy driving by there. And certainly since I've been involved with this project, spending a little bit more time on the ground there. So I want to show can I get the ability to share my screen, please?
Wanda, are you still with us?
Oh, I think I can. I can.
Good. Yeah.
So here's the layout of the park. And again, you all know it very well. Our project is designed to, well, just orientation. I think you all kind of know how we're laid out here. Maybe if I can make this a little bit smaller. Yeah, maybe why don't we start with this? You have the multi-purpose field here, or the soccer field here, and the tennis courts over here. And of course, the ball fields here. The scope of our work involves renovating the baseball field and renovating the softball field. And that includes new grass, new irrigation, new lighting. If you can see my cursor here, we're putting in new batting cages, new dugouts, and new bullpens. And a really nice piece to this, and I'll show this a little bit better in a different aspect, is kind of a pavilion. Where my cursor is now is where we have the press box and a little storage area here. And so we're going to develop this with some plantings, some greenery there, as well as some brick pavers. At least that's what's in our current design. So this is the layout that we've had. And again, we've been working towards this design for a while. If you'll permit me, let me scroll down a little bit to some other renderings so that you get a little bit better sense of this. This is, again, with the tennis courts over here. This is the baseball field. This is the softball field. Now, we aren't doing anything to the practice field in our current scope. But of course, the lighting that we're putting in, and certainly the irrigation and the stormwater plan that we're putting together is going to benefit this field as well. I've also been asked to look at adding to the work that we're going to do with the city's paying for it, renovating the multi-purpose field. And I don't think I have a good layout on it with this slide deck, but that would include putting down some new sod and some irrigation. And I think there was a request to put in some fencing. So again, scope of work, everything that you would think that would need to go into upgrading a softball and football, softball and baseball field with the lighting, the fencing, the batting cages, the dugouts, the bullpens, and all of the things that go into supporting the irrigation there. Let me see if I've got a couple of other photos. And again, this is really beautiful. I think kind of the layout of the pavilion here and how we've got it designed so it has a feel more of a kind of a park that you can have, pedestrians and so forth walking through here and certainly participating as spectators for the ball games there. So obviously, long time since this was put on paper, but this design in terms of the work that we're going to do at the field is pretty much held. A couple of things that are ongoing that we're working through. We still haven't received the full TRC approval. There were some issues with regards to the stormwater design that we were updating. We had an original design that we were asked to go back and look at and redesign, which we did, and we've submitted to the TRC, and we're waiting on some final comments on that. Hopefully we can move that forward and start getting to work on the stormwater portion. Another thing, and I wouldn't consider it controversial, but the standard that we're looking at in terms of how we build those dugouts, have them all CMU. If you have noticed how we've laid out the field at Lucy Beckham, their baseball field for that softball or for that high school, they're all CMU. Mr. Kronsberg and others have made a really good point why that may not work as well for a city park where you can't control the access to the fields like you could a high school baseball field, and maybe providing a design for those dugouts where you can have 24-hour security or at least observe inside the dugouts. And so I think we might have some way where we can meet both of those intentions. Again, that standard of how we have the entire CMU block dugouts is kind of what there's some expectation, at least with some athletic directors and school officials, is how they like those fields to look is really what we're shooting at. But I understand, again, for very good reasons why that doesn't work as well here. And I think one of the things that has come to light, in terms of some controversy in the community that we're going to be able to move past, is that since we didn't start as early as I wanted to on this project, and that we still had to finalize an updated stormwater design, I shifted some money around to other projects through CCSD, and wanted to wait until I locked in and finished the stormwater before we began working on those fields. And so that got a little bit of controversy that we were delaying this project unnecessarily, which isn't the case. We're still going to finish it pretty much close to when we were going to originally finish it. But again, there was a possibility to lose some of those annual funds that I was getting here, and there wasn't any clarity on exactly when we were going to be able to start. So that's why this got a little bit of press a couple of weeks ago. But again, it's a great project. I'm looking forward to moving forward with it. One thing that you might be considering or have a question about is it is going to be under the auspices of an MOU that we're developing between CCSD and the city, because we will be responsible for the maintenance of the field just like we do. I think Stony Field is a good example of, I think it's the name of it, is a good example of how we have an MOU and we're providing maintenance and support for that field. So that's pretty much the project. Like I said, I think that to the extent that we can move forward with our most recent stormwater design here in the next month or so, we'll be on track to finish this project with all of the aspects I just laid out for you by the fall of next year. And again, just looking forward to having a good project both for you all and for our sports team out there. Any questions for me?
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that presentation, Mr. Hamer. So will city recreation be utilizing these at any point as well?
Well, yes, ma'am. And I know you've got Jason and others on the line here. It is pretty much the way it is now. Our teams use the field for their mostly spring sports schedule, and when it's not being used by the high school, the city has access to it.
Okay, just quick follow up. So Lori, how does that overlap work? Does it work out fine, I assume?
So for the last several years, Councilmember Parker, we've been giving the field to St. John's High School for their baseball and their softball programs. They've come in the afternoons after school and run their practices and held home games there. It's worked okay. Yeah, we haven't had any problem. And then our adult programs happen in the evening after that. So that works. Our youth program on Johns Island, we've kind of allowed the Johns Island Little League to use fields, trying to help them since I don't have a physical presence out there yet. So we've certainly made it work. I suspect as we grow out there, those are all adult sized fields that Mr. Hamer's talking about. We're going to need some youth size fields. You're probably already thinking that as you're thinking about numbers and the families that we all know are moving out there. So we will need to build some youth size fields in addition to that.
For everybody else, there was one other point that I meant to make, and I'm sorry for jumping back in while y'all are considering if you got any questions. But one of the things that my team is working on is I pretty much anticipate that our final stormwater mitigation design will require moving some vegetation that is currently around a ditch. I don't know that it is very impactful, but it does have a little bit of a sound buffer between the pickleball courts and the neighborhood. I will pull the rendering back up. But part of our design is to look for ways to either provide some revegetation along that ditch or provide some sound reduction panels on one side of the tennis court, or maybe some other things. I know my folks have recommended putting maybe a fence inside the ditch, but I think providing some additional vegetation once we complete the upgrade to the ditch and putting some sound reducing panels on the tennis court is going to make a difference. As I said, I'm not sure what is there now provides a lot of muffling, but I think it probably is going to be a good optic that we're trying to not make the sound worse by the foliage that we have to remove there.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and may I address you as Steve?
Yes, sir. That's
Steve,
fine. Thank you.
Thank you for your collaboration with us. And if I may share, Councilmember Parker and everyone, this collaboration is a two-way street. You know, sometimes we have a park property that we agree to allow CCSD to use for your recreation purposes. And then sometimes you do the same and allow us to have recreation programs on your school properties as well. So it's a true partnership between the two of us. Thank you for, toughing it out with us on the stormwater requirements. I can only share with you personally, going through Johns Island Park on a couple of occasions after pretty intense storms that we had, and the water wasn't running off over there like it needs to. So improvements to the drainage there are good for the park. It's good for the neighborhood as well around there. So I know our requirements are tougher than they used to be, but in the long run, it's going to be worth it. And lastly, thank you for allowing us to piggyback with you on the upgrade of our playing field over there. I knew that we had some improvements that were identified in our Parks and Rec master plan, and it included numerous improvements to the park, but one that I asked Lori and Jason, what was the most needed improvement on the city side, and they answered to me, it was upgrading that field, that playing field. So allowing that to go forward with your project so it gets done takes a little burden off of us, to tell you the truth. It makes, the more we get done, the better. So thank you for including that as part of your scope. and we've identified some funding to make that happen. So please march on and include that in the project, if you would, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Jason, before we left this, I just wanted to make sure, Jason Kronsberg, that you didn't have anything to add or anything that you wanted to say on this before we left this.
No, nothing to add. I think Mr. Hammer kind of covered it all. We're working with him weekly to make sure we're all lockstep and moving this forward.
Very good. Well, thank you again, Steve. Really appreciate all that you do and the way you work with us, work so well. And you know, as Mayor Tecklenburg said, our true partnership that we have, but we really appreciate the work that you do as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions before we move on? All right, well, next up, we've got an update on our end of summer and fall sports registrations, and things are starting to pick up here. School's getting ready to get back in. We're getting ready to start our fall sports and wrapping up the summer. So I'm going to call on Lori and ask her to give us an update if she would.
Thank you, Councilmember Shealy. I appreciate the opportunity. We are delighted to give kids back to the Charleston County School District on Wednesday. We've had a busy, great summer. The last couple months have been really hot, but we've managed to get through it. I'll give you a brief update of the summer and then answer any questions. So because of our contract with USA Management this year for our swimming pools, we were able to run all 4 pools this summer. We were able to teach 4 sessions of public swim lessons. So I know that some of you council members might not have had your phone ringing quite as much this summer as you did last summer. We were able to accommodate kids and young children, even some adults, in some summer swim lessons. So we were excited about that. We will be closing our seasonal pools on Labor Day, with the exception of WL Stevens. That pool still has a water heater, so we'll continue to run it on a not full schedule, but a pretty robust schedule through at least the end of October, depending on the weather. So we're excited about that. And so we also taught lessons in addition to the public lessons we taught. We were able to teach lessons to all of our summer camps that the city runs. Those were our kids at Arthur Christopher, at St. Julian, at Forest Park. Our police department's Camp Hope kids came over and used our pools this summer, so that was great. And then Kids on Point, which is one of our partners out there, they brought kids to our summer pools as well, and were able to take some lessons, as well as District 20. So we were happy. We were able to accommodate as many needs as we were. It's been a safe summer, and I'm appreciative for everybody's efforts on our aquatic side. It's been great. Our day camps, those are the camps that we run to offer parents of children ages 6 to 12 an opportunity to be in an active, full day camp. Those were all full and ran great this summer. We had a full number at City Gym, a full number at St. Julian, James Allen Rec Center, Bees Landing, Forest Park, and Daniel Allen Rec Center. All, if you stop by at any point between 8 in the morning and 6 at night, there were kids everywhere taking programs and activities during summer camps. So that worked out really well. Our specialty camps and sports camps were all full every week, all summer. Our golf course at one point was serving 30 kids a week with golf course camp, and we had about triple that number on a wait list. So just really good. Our summer tennis camps at both Maybank and Charleston Tennis Center were full. We ran a number of sports camps, basketball camps, flag football, baseball camps, softball camps, all did great, and we were able to accommodate a number of children. We ran our drop-in programs and our summer lunch program, where we feed the free lunches in the free and reduced areas for lunch. Shaw Center ran that, Freddie Whaley, Thomas Johnson over on James Allen, Martin Park, Mall Park, the Pink House, which is not a city facility, but one that we partner and collaborate with. We had the summer lunch program there. We also did it at Lenovar and at Willie Gaines in West Ashley. So we were able to reach a number of children that we might not have normally reached in that way. We had a great number of partners with us this summer. Carolina Studios, which is the mobile recreation music program that Mark Bryan from Hootie and the Blowfish, his foundation runs. We had them in all of our summer camps. We worked with Kids on Point at the municipal golf course, at our gymnastics center at Shaw, and our pools, as I mentioned. So the Camp Hope, run by the police department, was visiting facilities of ours. And we also partnered with the Charleston Police Department and the Flip League for the Summer Basketball League this year, which ended Saturday night at Forest Park. So it was a very busy and successful summer. We're now cranking into fall. We've completed our registration. I'll throw you some numbers. As of right now, we have 563 children registered for sports in the downtown area. On James Island, we have 1,576 kids registered for fall sports. On Daniel Island, we've got 1,062. And then in West Ashley, we've got 1,347. And we have another 1,200 girls playing volleyball in the volleyball league program, which will start up. So that's right at 6,000 children citywide. Those are on ball fields, both multi-purpose fields, baseball and softball fields, and also in our gyms. So we've got a lot of activity going on. We're really excited. It's almost that time. The high schools are back back playing sports. And so we kind of feel like it's time for us to be doing the same thing. So all of our fall registrations look great, and I'll take any questions that anybody might have.
Councilmember Parker.
How about gymnastics, Lori?
Gymnastics has already we registered for that, Councilmember Parker, in the spring, so we could accommodate for that, those rec classes and the team program. They are all full. We've got waiting list. You need to stop in. I was going to send you a text. The Parks Department has just completed some work back there. I know you and I walked through a couple weeks ago, so I could show you. The new flooring in there is absolutely amazing. It gives the place a new look, a new smell. They're moving all the equipment back in and doing some cleaning, and they're going to be redoing the front desk in there. And then they'll start on the other part of the building as we talked in November. But I think you're going to see what a great addition that new flooring is, and how it's going to look in our bathrooms and in the lobby of the front part of the building when we do that. So I'm very pleased.
Very good. All right, Mayor Tecklenburg.
Thank you. So two questions, and you might have said, Lori, and I missed it. How many kids were involved in the summer programs?
So we average, Mayor, about 850 kids a week in summer camps, depending on specialty camps and summer day camps. We didn't run every sports camp every week, but we were on the average, we had about 850 children on average in a City of Charleston summer camp program every week this summer.
Wow. Okay. And on the other numbers you were quoting, totaling something like 6,000, do we keep track of how many of those are city residents versus out of city residents?
We do. I don't have that number in front of me, but when we register in Rec Track, we've got it broken down into residents and non-residents. I will say that most of those folks are going to be residents. But I can certainly get that split for you and send it to you all. I'd be happy to do that.
I'd be curious to see it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
would.
sir.
I would be too, just especially on. I know James Island is a different beast, but it would be a good. I think it'd be nice to see.
Yes, I can break it down by the borough. I'm sure on James Island, it might be a little higher since you don't have the town of James Island giving those program services. And then you also pick up some Folly Beach. West Ashley, most of the people that live in St. Andrews go to St. Andrews, and the city go to city. So it's probably going to split a little differently in the other areas, but I can certainly do it citywide and by borough for you all.
And do you register by Johns Island as well, or they just sign up per West Ashley and James Island, I guess?
So they register and sign up, and they, depending on which side of the island they live, probably closer to West Ashley or James Island, depends on where they actually choose to play. But we do have their residency as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more question, Lori. Do you know? I know you might not have these numbers right now, but I know you gave us a wonderful spreadsheet back at the master plan workshop. But of those numbers, how many teams? I know that this is something I can probably get from our recreation gals and guys at the rec center or other areas if other council members want them. But specifically teams. How many so 1,576 on James Island, approximately how many teams? Because I know, we have one, maybe we have another one now over at Bayview for the soccer team, managing the soccer and flag football. So I'm just curious. I know that's a lot of kids. We know how many kids, but how many teams, how many
Yes.
coaches, that our staff are managing, how many teams? I think that.
Sure, I can break that out for you for sure. So right now, I'm looking at some big numbers in terms of baseball. James Island has 11 baseball teams and 6 softball teams. In terms of flag football, I have 23 flag football teams on James Island. And I have, in the terms of soccer, 36 for them. I'm probably got close to 55 soccer teams, and then tackle football on James Island, which we're going to give all the credit to Coach McCoy over at James Island Charter High School and what he's doing. But we've got some great tackle football numbers over there. He's got 4 teams all just on James Island, which is really good. So sports are growing right there on James Island, but I'll get you a breakdown of all the areas and all the volunteer coaches.
That works. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Well, Lori, thank you so much. I mean, obviously, we're touching a lot of city lives with these kids and these programs that you're doing, and really appreciate all the efforts of all of your staff. And obviously, you've been short-staffed in a lot of areas, and to have that much participation, be able to run the programs you are, it's very much appreciated. And I know it's not easy right now. So thank you.
We've got some great staff, Councilmember Shealy. I'm just going to brag on them. They do a tremendous job. And it's not me, it's the superintendents and the coordinators, and it's the field supervisors. I mean, if you go to West Ashley Park, you're going to see Stacy Collins walk in lockstep with every volunteer coach she's got. She's out there for every practice. It's the same thing with Kate over on James Island. If Councilmember Parker goes out there, she's going to see her at Bayview. If you see Allison at James Island Rec Center, I mean, these people are working those shifts, that 1 to 9 shift, to be out there with these families and getting to know them. And that's that personal touch. That's that relationship that we build. So we're proud of that. And I will tell you that I'm proud of the folks I get to work with every day. And I thank you all for your support.
Thank you so much. And Jason, I know you've been working hard on fields and all kinds of facility updates and stuff over the summer too. I've seen it over there when I walked through West Ashley Park, and just appreciate the job that you've done, as far as that's concerned as well. So thank you. I did happen, unless we've got something else on this, I did happen to skip 4B. I apologize, but Councilmember Parker had asked for a discussion of maintenance of all fields for sports teams to use in the fall. So I'm going to ask Councilmember Parker, I guess, to speak to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think that was perfect because I think a lot of my questions, hearing about the registration for the fall was a key piece of, my questions for the ball fields. Obviously, I mean, I asked Laura, she kind of ran off those numbers of teams. I mean, that's almost 90 teams. I agree. Our fields look incredible. Bayview, I was out there this weekend enjoying it. I mean, unbelievable what Kate and Allison do with these fields. Everybody on James Island just knows. And I mean, it's incredible what they can pull together. 90 teams, all that coordination. But as I think I've brought up before, some of our fields on James Island, we have a lot of fields. We have a lot of teams. We have a lot of kids that want to play all the time, and sometimes they're limited to one practice a week or just based on field availability. So I am just curious, those other fields we have, Stephen Washington, Thomas Johnson, Ferguson Village, are we going to add these to the list of maintenance, dragging these fields, lining them, whether we're using the outfield for flag football? This is definitely, this has been a concern a few seasons now. And I'm just kind of wondering where we are, where we can be with that.
So I guess I'll jump in here. Lori can tag team on how those fields are programmed or are not programmed. I will tell you, I've got a quick little presentation of numbers to share with you all. And just to show you what we can actually do based on the requests. Let me share my screen here and put it in the right place. Give me a second. I'm going to go over some kind of big picture things here to set this up. Can you all see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see it, Jason.
Okay, so I want to go through some participation increases going back to some data that Lori and her team shared with me. So you can see here, this is broken down Peninsula, James Island, Daniel Island, West Ashley in 2013 to last year in 2022. So the Peninsula has stayed relatively the same as you could all imagine. James Island has had an increase in 67%, and this is based on participation of youth sports only. Daniel Island has grown 106%, West Ashley 19%, with a citywide total increase of 44% for youth sports and participants. So with that being said, I want to go into a little bit of park staffing. Parks ground maintenance consists of athletic field staff, grounds maintenance staff, horticultural staff, and urban forestry staff. In the year of 2015, our budgeted positions were 92 for this division. Go to 2023, we've dropped down to 87. Both filled in 15 and 23 is about the same, with about the same vacancy. So 29 and 23 positions vacant, or 26% vacant in the grounds maintenance division. So the reason these decrease is over the years, we take a lot of those lower level positions and trade them out for different positions higher up in the org chart. So if we have 2 groundskeepers, that's very difficult to fill those positions. We might get rid of 2 in order to create a new position further up the org chart, really higher paid position that gets a little bit more interest in the market. So just for the field work itself, dragging for practices and games, just for ball fields. Now I'm focusing on ball fields and baseball and softball. So budgeted, we have 5 positions. Filled, we have 1 crew leader, 1 lead groundskeeper, 1 groundskeeper, and 2 temp workers. Now these 5 staff members cover every single baseball or softball field from Daniel Island through the peninsula, across West Ashley, and James and Johns Island. So in a typical week, they are responsible for 32 baseball fields or softball fields. So in the height of the season, so in April, that's 95 drags per week. And this shows you where they are. 6 on the peninsula, 9 in West Ashley, 4 Daniel Island, 9 on James Island, and 4 on Johns Island. So that we try to split these fellas up into 2 teams, assuming we have 2 trucks available. It's a lot of coverage for 5 guys. So when when the recreation program puts their schedules together, this is what we get each week. So here's a couple of pages that shows you Peninsula schedules, Daniel Island schedules, West Ashley schedules, James Island and Johns Island schedules. So this has all of those locations you mentioned, Councilmember Parker. If we can get to them, on Westchester, they've got scheduled twice a week. I can tell you that right now we're with those 5 staff members, and based on weather delays, we might hit 80% of the requested practice drags in a week in the high season. And then if you go to, and hopefully all of the games. So if you go to kind of field locations, this just kind of goes into more practicing. So basically, it comes down to the depth of our chart of this right here. We just can't keep up with the current schedule based on these increases and the staffing in the parks department for the last 10 years. You know, in 2018 and 2019, we were working with Amy and HR and the mayor, and we were getting someplace pretty good until COVID hit. And in 2019, as you all know, we went into this thing and we were ramping up on hiring and new staffing in the parks department. And we had a considerable setback over the past couple of years. So what we're doing right now is we have a complete reorganization happening. You will see it in our budget request this year. There's going to be a lot of staff members, new positions requested in order to keep up with this growing population and all the new places that we're constructing and the ones we have existing that we want to keep up better. We only have enough people to do so much work. So these things are all on the schedule. It's just having the ability to get to them. So that's like big picture field maintenance discussion items and staffing. I wish I had a magic wand that I could create 2 or 3 more crews and we could get to everyone and focus on more of a regional based maintenance program where you have one crew that's responsible for Johns Island fields and James Island fields, and then that's all they do. But this one crew that we have right now crosses the entire city every week. So it's really hard to commit to new places when we can't even keep up with what we have. But we're working on new staffing, new budget increases, and that's the long and short of it.
Councilmember Parker?
Sure. You want me to keep going?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking you were wanting to speak.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you, Jason. I know. And I completely understand. And we've had these conversations. I know, obviously, the staffing issues, and we all know that the staff that we do have is spread incredibly thin, doing a ton of work citywide, and so my constituents, I always relay that to my constituents and they understand. But, and I say, but gently, we still, I believe, and Councilmember Bowden, Councilmember Saccharin, Councilmember Shaley, being members of this committee, I certainly still feel that we as a city need to come up with a solution. We know that the staffing, we're not going to fix that this season, so our fall season. I know that they have already maybe mapped out all of this, but being one, with 3 children in recreation, I know that having all of these different coaches, some coaches will add another practice. This is wonderful that we have all these volunteers willing to give their time to these children. But I just think that one of the most important pieces is just having these fields, ready to use, safe, drug mode, all of that, cleared, whatever it needs to be, so that people can utilize them for the recreation practices. So again, committee members, I don't know, you may feel differently, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I certainly feel that we need to come up with a solution to get these fields usable this season. I agree with you for next budget season. I mean, we have, for 24, we have a budget season that we're going to be looking at for 24, but I'm certainly talking about, fall and what can we do until we solve that staffing shortage.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Chair. This question for Jason. So in terms of the staffing challenges, is it the hourly rates? Are we back to that in terms of just not competitive enough? Or we just don't have enough people in the pool to actually recruit, even if the hourly rates were what they should be?
It's a little bit of everything. You know, the athletic field crews get paid a little bit of a differential. So they get paid a little bit more than your regular lead groundskeepers or crew leaders because of the work is a lot, and it's a lot of territory to coverage. But right now it's a little bit of everything. It's hard to hire people. It's hard to manage that process while the superintendents are trying to do the daily work. So it's a little bit of a revolving door when you come to hiring and attrition. You have to weed through all of the applicants, whether they're at this level. We don't get any experienced folks coming in to apply for these jobs. So right now we've got 3 full-time employees that cover this total area with 2 temporary workers. So it's the volume of territory, and in the last 10 to 15 years, it's grown considerably, and we just need to grow our staff. And certainly the pay, the last pay bump certainly helped. But there's a lot of open positions still, and it's a lot of territory to cover, and we don't have enough positions to fill to cover that much territory and add all of the neighborhood type parks that aren't programmed by the recreation department. And so there's more neighborhood use type fields. We try to focus on the rec league sports and the permitted adult sports. And again, we just don't have the bandwidth or the bench depth, if you will, to hit every single ball field every week. We just can't do it. So it's staffing. That's number one.
Follow-up question, or a couple of follow-up questions is, do we have folks in HR that help recruit for different departments? Or is it just a generic, they just take in applications? Like, for example,
it's my understanding that HR had just hired 2 new recruitment specialists. So we have 3, I believe, that work in that area. So then I haven't even met them yet. They're brand new.
And my last piece, Jason, and this is really for my colleagues, as we think about the budget for next year and the rates, just from my perspective, from a business owner, we've had to increase our menu prices over the course of 3 times over the course of the year, mainly because we're just not sure where that sweet spot is in terms of inflation. The numbers keep going up. So I would just encourage my fellow council members and Jason, when you put that budget request in for next year, I wouldn't put a conservative request in. I would think what you're going to need for the next 5 years. And council members, it's going to be an increase. So if we want these services, we have to vote yes on some of these tax increases if that's what it requires. I think it's disingenuous for us to sit here and complain about some of the concerns and shortfalls when we vote no on tax increases when it comes tax season time. And there's ways to get around it, but at the end of the day, some of these bumps, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, are substantial hourly rate increases.
Yeah,
People are working for $16 an hour, folks.
Yeah. And then just as far as what we're going to request, do we have kind of a 10-year plan, which we wouldn't put all out at once, but as far as staffing goes for next year, we have a considerable number of positions we're going to be requesting.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bowden.
Thank you. So just out of curiosity, is this, I guess, Lori or Jason, is this a problem that is maybe somewhat specific to certain parts of the city? I'm just curious. I haven't been getting these calls, and I'm wondering if it's because I'm not talking to the right people, or something like that, or West Ashley just is blessed to have more space, or something. I'm just trying to get a sense of whether this is James Island's having a huge issue, and the rest of us are fortunate and it's coming, or where we are on that.
Jason, I'll take a stab at that. So that's a great question and good way of looking at it. In West Ashley, we share Parks and Recreation Services with St. Andrews Parks and Playgrounds. So they do supply some fields and programs for West Ashley residents, both city and non-city. For years, they've been known as having a very strong baseball program. And they still have that history and that thought. They don't have the same numbers with us in basketball or volleyball or soccer. And they don't have any flag or tackle football. So we kind of had different uses there. Daniel Island, now that we have lights at Governor's Park, we've been able to take care of some of our field problems there. And we also came in kind of fully built up. Downtown was the bulk of our parks and recreation facilities for years. So we have built some fields down here too, but I think your phone may start ringing a little bit as the days get shorter and shorter. I know Councilmember Shealy can weigh in that his does, because everyone and their brother is going to start looking for a field for their child's team to practice on. And that could be the kid that plays travel soccer, travel baseball, whatever, because there are so few lighted fields available just for the general public to use. So then on the weekends, those fields that Councilmember Parker's talking about, those neighborhood fields become really nice and looking on for a Saturday or Sunday to grab for a practice. But you'll hear the same thing. I mean, it becomes, right now, people are still enjoying the longer days, but they're starting to get shorter. By the time we get to the end of September, teams are not going to be able to practice in the afternoons after school. So I think you'll start hearing it a little bit, but your situation is different than hers.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, can you go back to the slides with the drag schedule? Would you mind? And then I'll ask this. So once again, I mean, we know that paying employees, we know we've talked about this for as long as I've been on council. We know that, and I hope that we do. And Councilmember Saccharine, I'm certain that James Island is more than willing to have a tax increase if it means funding our recreation and making our fields and programming better. So again, talking about a solution for the fall, are private partnerships, is that something? I mean, are we at a point where the city can't, because as far as I understand, it's not an affordability. It's not that we can't, we have the money. We have the money to maintain, we just don't have the staff. So what's the solution? Outside contracts? I mean, there has to be, obviously there are vacant position savings. And if so, I mean, Jason, what are those and can we utilize those? I know we had to do it with environmental services. And again, it might be something, again, I don't know how this committee or rest of council feels, but if we have those vacant position savings, should we be utilizing them to maintain some of our existing fields to help our recreation programming sort of open it up a little, giving them the space and the luxury to say, oh yeah, that field's open, these are available. Those are some solutions. Or like I said earlier, are we desperately needing a private partnership to come to these fields and maintain them? I see on the drag schedule that we have Plymouth and Medway 5-day drag, and those are right around the corner from each other.
Yeah, so I would say these fields, which are just kind of general weekly fields, I know that Medway and Plymouth get some programming, and Lori could kind of go into that a little bit. But typically some of these other neighborhood parks aren't programmed outside of permitted activities that maybe a group comes in and has a softball tournament or something. So basically the rec program stuff, the dedicated game fields and practice fields are what we try to get through, but we don't always get through all of the practices. We try to get through all the game field drags every week. It's just 3 to 5 people traversing the entire city limits. Only so much you can do. So from a contract point of view or a partnership point of view, I don't know who the partners would be. But if there was, the school district contracts most of their field work out, but they get a lot less use. So they don't have a daily use routine like we do across the entire city limits. So, I'm open to all recommendations. We can investigate contract servicing, but I don't know who the partners would be out there.
Okay, well, okay, so my last question was the vacant position, the vacant position savings. I mean, can we use those to contract the maintenance of these fields?
I mean, historically, that was how a lot of our contracts were funded. But we'd have to talk to Amy and and the folks over at her office in the budget to figure. I don't know how to. I don't allocate where the funds come from and where they go. I just ask for them, and if we get them, we spend them, right? So that's a little bit outside of my day-to-day management.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if you're there, if you have any suggestions, happy to hear them.
Well, thank you. I think the suggestion of seeking out a outside contractor to help us fill in where needed is a good one. And Jason, in fact, Mr. Hamer, are you still on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
Could you give us any information that you might have about who y'all use for your fields? I don't think y'all do that in-house, do you?
No, we don't. We do have outside contractor help, and I'm happy to share that with Jason. And as a matter of fact, we're actually undergoing renewing our grounds contracts, which is going to include the athletic fields. That solicitation or that request for proposals is ongoing now.
Oh, great.
So we're going to get perhaps a new company. But, overall, I've been pretty satisfied with it. I know the challenge that Jason is talking about with, not having enough capacity in-house. And again, this is a resource that we use, and so far it's worked pretty good for us.
Terrific. Yeah, if you'd share that with us, and we could investigate not only who wins your proposal, your request for proposal, but maybe the others as well, since we're only doing it on a part-time basis. And Jason, you might check with the Citadel or College of Charleston or just anybody else that we know of that's out there keeping up any kind of fields. They might have some contractor that we're not aware of. That'd be a good idea to check on. Thanks. Thank you, Mr.
Great.
Hamer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lori, this may sound like a crazy question. I don't know. Back a long time ago, I coached high school baseball for 3 years, and our baseball players drug our fields before practice. But is it out of the realm of possibilities to ask some of our volunteer coaches and or parents if they would drag fields when we don't have enough people working to drag fields?
Well, I'll certainly let Jason weigh in on that as to whether or not he wants how he would train or have some guidelines to how we do that. Our recreation staff helps sometimes as well. When the Parks Department leaves at 3:30, when their day ends, if we get a late afternoon shower, we have the ability to chalk lines, to throw some turfus down, to get some water off the fields. So we try to help on that too. I just don't have the staff to do that for every day, every time. But the challenge with volunteers, and we've got some great volunteers that coach in our program that I know are just like an employee, is when we count on volunteers, if they don't show, we're still ultimately responsible and stuck with it. So I'll let Jason speak to what he's comfortable with and getting equipment on our fields, and then where we would store that equipment and those kind of things. That has some challenges, but there are some programs across the state that do use volunteers to help do some things as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Shealy.
Councilmember Saccharine, yes, sir.
Thank you. I thought you were going in this place with it, which was we've got seniors and juniors across the county that are looking for positions and looking for jobs. I'm wondering if this is something, Jason, that we could work with the CCSD in our partnership, basically recruit and then train those folks and pay them. I mean, I don't know what specifically, the technical skills, what it requires, Jason, but are we just talking about groundskeeping and like mowing lawns?
Well, the ball field work, it's not hard to mess up an infield. So
Okay.
you have to have some skill and knowledge on how to do it. So basically, when we have our superintendent level and assistant superintendent level to the crew leaders, they should know what they're doing. And we're trying to hit there's definitely the games at least once a day, but we'll hit it once, drag those infields. You have to be very careful not to create lips from your transition from your infield to your outfield, because balls can take a bad hop. And so there's lots of little nuances that you need to keep an eye on that a lot of people wouldn't really know. And it's not that hard to create some of those safety issues if you're not doing it correctly. So yeah, it's in the afternoon, like Laurie said, if there's multiple games, her staff might get out there and just drag some and chalk some batter's box lines. And we don't have the ability to do it between games if there's multiple games in the afternoon. But yeah, I mean, everything helps. And I think if you had coaches and volunteers that came out, between games, that's certainly something that could happen.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker.
Councilmember-
I'm sorry, Councilmember Sacker, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done. I know Jason answered it. I guess I'm thinking more of a formal like pipeline of almost like a training program
Right.
at the high school level that, I mean, I guess, and I don't know what our high schools have, but and anyways, I'm just curious to investigate and think if there could be that opportunity to work with CCSD and get some seniors and juniors that are interested in, I don't know what field it is. I mean, is it landscaping? Is it, don't folks want to go out and learn how to do golf courses at some point? Anyway.
It's like that turf management
Yep.
kind of track when you get into college and you kind of go through all of that. And there might be some recreation majors out there. Again, that's all creating new programs and going out there and trying to find those folks. But it's a good idea.
Councilmember Sacker, and that's the golf course has been talking about this as well. And in that turf management vein, trying to find young folks that are wanting to get into that industry with all the golf courses we have in the Low Country. They've done a really good job up in Myrtle Beach around their technical school and all the golf courses there. And so that's kind of been a conversation that started at the golf course level at the Muni and some other public-private courses here. But I think it could tie into our ball fields as well. I don't know if that's high school or technical school, but I think that is definitely something that our city, if we can't find the workforce, then we need to help build that workforce.
I agree somehow, but I know it's a capacity issue. Jason.
It is capacity, and that's not me either, but I definitely see the need for it if someone could help create it.
Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and just so you know, I mean, I can speak for many of my volunteers. They already do that. They already are, dragging the field sometimes to use them, to play on them, to get these kids, an extra practice here or there or on other fields. So yeah, they're doing that.
Thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg.
So to Councilmember Parker's point, I think they are doing that to a degree already. They certainly are willing to do that because they just want their kids to have a good feel when they go out. Believe it or not, I once was a volunteer coach myself and used to do a little bit of that. I remember back in those days, of course, that was a minute or two ago, but then having the stuff you needed, if you're willing, have the equipment, the rake, the broom, whatever you needed, even with the willing volunteers, it would take a little bit of training and thought on our part, the city's part, to have the right things in place to where if you had willing, able volunteers, to have the tools of the trade there for them to do their job. So anyway, I think this is a great conversation and should lead us both to the professional side of finding some outside contractors, but also take a good hard look on the training and a little bit of equipment. It wouldn't take a lot of equipment, but it would take some equipment to have available to have some volunteers help us as well. Good discussion. Thanks.
It is. Thank you. Councilmember Bowden.
Just want to see, it sounds like some of these things may take a little bit more work and thought than others, particularly getting, maybe students involved. But could we maybe at our next meeting have a update on the contractors that the school district uses and whether in other entities, and whether that's something that's feasible, since that'll be about time when Lori expects my phone to start ringing.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to Steve and get that contact information from them, and we'll do a little sleuthing.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much on that conversation. We spent some time, but I think just like Mayor Tecklenburg said, I think it's good conversation. So I appreciate everybody's input on that. But we'll move on now, unless anybody has anything else on that subject. We're gonna get an update on WPAL park site status.
All right, I'll take that one. So, the design process is underway. We've had the geotech, we've held neighborhood meetings. Geotech consultants have been out doing soil borings, understand our water table and what sort of stormwater design we're going to have to utilize to construct access into the park. Of course, I don't think anybody would be surprised that there's a very high water table out there. The site is very low. So we're going through that design process with our engineers. TRC submittal is scheduled for mid-September. Dock and pier designs are both underway as well, with some concurrent reviews. But with OCRM, we're trying to shorten the dock a little bit. The existing dock out there right now is about 1,000 feet. It's the maximum dock you can have to get to navigable water. So we're trying to kind of put a little turn in that dock and get to some deep water, but with a couple hundred feet shorter. We know that existing structure out there was constructed in a residential fashion. It's not very robust. So what we have to do for municipal access and accessibility is it's going to be a little bit of a more robust structure. So hopefully, based on permitting, that we'll be able to go out to bid Q1, Q2 of next year. Again, assuming that we get through and get our permits approved through the permitting agencies.
Great. Any questions? Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, what's the approximate cost? Just maybe the 1,000-foot dock or whatever is going out to bid.
Right. We're working on estimates right now, looking at probably over $1 million to get the dock installed. And then that didn't include any parking areas, picnic shelters, or restroom structures. So that's all. Last week, we're trying to pull all those numbers together right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
So just to let everyone know, when I went out to the public input session, and then I drove from where we had that down to the park, it was very clear the comments were correct that we needed better access to the property, particularly for City of Charleston residents that live on the Savannah Highway side of the property, for lack of better description. When you get down Wapu Road, where it kind of starts to hit the water's edge or the marsh edge, and it takes a left, the sidewalk ends there. And so this would be a different project through our public works, public services department. But I honestly believe that we ought to have a new sidewalk, extension of the sidewalk built by the time we open this new park. And Councilmember Parker, part of the sidewalk would have to kind of go over the marsh. So it reminded, about a week after that meeting and realization, I was driving over to that James Island intergovernmental meeting that you had invited me to. And it's just like that little portion of the sidewalk along Dills Bluff Road, where you see it kind of goes out like a little walkway over the marsh. So there's a little section of this stretch along Wapu Road where you would have to do a similar thing. And I'm sure that's going to involve also some funding and some permitting. But honestly, y'all, I think we need to provide a safe way for our citizens, you know, other than getting in their car, to be able to walk or ride their bike down to this park. So not to elaborate, we don't have a budget yet for that. I've asked Public Works to look into it and start to develop a budget on that. But I really feel strongly that it needs to go hand in hand with the development of the park to add a sidewalk as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully agree with that. I think it's from Garden Street, Garden Street's the street that Stone Oak Park Elementary is on, all the way to that park. And you've got the backside, the creek that wraps around Capri Isle is the part where you're going to have to go over that creek. But yeah, Wapu Road, I mean, it for pedestrian walking up and down or riding bikes up and down Wapu Road, it could be dangerous trying to get to that park there. So I agree with you. We need to have something. And it was the biggest concern when we did have the public comment, I think was that there was no sidewalk access to get there from between Garden Street, but that and the limited parking. But anyway, I agree with you on that. So thank you. Any other questions on WPAL? Okay. Ooh, I lost my agenda here. Bear with me a second. Okay, got it back. The next on our agenda, if there's nothing else on WPAL, anybody? Nobody? Okay. Is an update on Fort Pemberton status. So Jason, if you would, please.
Pemberton's probably about the same kind of slot. There is a TRC agenda item this week. So the consultants are bringing the conceptual plan to TRC for the first step in our permitting process. So hopefully that goes well. All of these are in the queue, if you will, in that permit process. So then there's also a requirement of the original PUD that was for the formal development that was going to happen in there, that this property is under BARL jurisdiction. So there's also a BAR submittal this week to talk about the demolition of the existing house there, which has, as you all may know, was set on fire in an arson scenario. It's burned out on the interior. Fire department got the fire put out, but in doing so, it pretty much the house is boarded up now, and it's got lots of fire and smoke damage. So that demolition permit is in the BARL queue. We're also working with the State Historic Preservation Office and the South Carolina Battleground Preservation Trust, who hold the conservation easements on the earthworks, getting their concurrence in the park plans as well. So the outlook for that one is about the same: Q1, Q2, phase 1 public access bids to get the park established and open to the public. Again, all based on permitting schedules.
Any questions on Fort Pemberton? All right. Well, thank you for that update, Jason. And next is on our agenda is the request to name the WPAL site the Bill Saunders Park. So I'm going to, I guess, call on Jason for that one.
Lori should have that one. It's
Oh, I'm sorry.
going through the Recreation Commission.
Yeah, so I do have the request, the application for facility dedication. It has not been seen by the citizen committee yet. But we've done this before where you all have approved something and moved it forward, and I've gone back and reported, but we've got a request in, and it's to name the park for Bill Saunders, who is a war hero and legend of the civil rights movement. He was raised on Johns Island and awarded a Purple Heart during a special ceremony at the Citadel in the year 2002. He was the owner of WPAL radio station from 1972 to 1998. And it broadcasted local issues, and it really is highlighted. And it was the first radio station to return to the air after Hugo hit, when people needed their information. So this is a request in. It meets all of the city's guidelines and regulations for how we name a parks and recreation facility. And so I'm bringing that to you all.
So do we need to vote on that in this committee then? Is that correct?
Yes, we need to get a motion and a second, and then do a vote, and then it would go, you could report out to the full committee, and then I'll take it back to the citizen committee as an after report.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion to approve WPAL Park site be named Bill Saunders Park?
I'll make a
So
motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion, any questions, any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so it passes this committee, and we'll move on to city council at our next meeting. So, is there anything else to come before this committee today? I know we ran a little bit long today. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And remember to be patient on Wednesday. Traffic's going to be a little worse with schools opening in Charleston County, and there'll be people on edge. So please try to do your best to keep your patience and drive carefully, keep your eyes open. So if there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.